What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the Monday show, gang. Hopefully you can see me, hear me, all that good stuff. Forgot to put it in the big window, but who cares? Don't need my big face starting the show out. It gave me an error when I first started the stream, so hopefully this worked. Everything seems to be working as usual. I haven't had any computer issues since the other day, that last time it dropped out. Everything's been fine ever since then, so hopefully whatever was going on worked itself out there. Fanatic, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you. Andy Melman's here. Steven Leibowitz. I have Joker as my SP2. Yeah, ugly day. Early show start time here at 1:30 on a Monday afternoon. Tiny face Terry is fine. Yeah, Cujo's here as well. Hope you're having a good Monday too, buddy. Hope everybody had good weekends out there. Early start time for the show today because we've got an early start time for the slate and just a stupid broken little 3-gamer. Fanatic took a $2,200 live bet when Langford only needed a home run with a $25 bonus bet. Hit a 4-legger for UFC. Sounds like a pretty solid little weekend there. Yeah, Wyatt Langford hit the home run to get the cycle. Not bad. Dimitri, ugly day, but I'm a degenerate. What's up? Yeah. Think Dimitri hit it on the head there. Probably going to be a short show. Probably going to be one of our smaller crowds of the year. I totally get it. I looked at this schedule yesterday and I was like, I have no idea what they're going to do. I thought they might go 2 games. I really wasn't sure. Because if you're not aware, we're dealing with 3 games. And this one starts at 3:07. This next one up after that starts at 6:45. And then we've got another 2-hour wait until 8:40 for a game of all things at Coors Field with an 11.5 run total. It's going to be a fun one. So this is our board. We'll go through it. Bunch of lousy pitching options on deck as well. Several really high run totals. The debut of a top end prospect for Washington. A lot of interesting pieces on the tiny slate. Andy, we wouldn't want to subject you to that, buddy. So we'll try and keep it to. We'll probably get out to somewhere around lock. Let's be honest, but we'll see what happens. Big day in the Dynasty League is the start of our minor league draft, our slow draft by email. It started at quote unquote first thing this morning. And we are now, I think, 3 picks into it. Looks like we've gotten 3 picks accomplished in the last 6 hours in that league. It's a good job, boys. It was a busy weekend in that league. Made several trades. One with our pal Emac. Acquired Tariq Skubal for a package of prospects and a draft pick from Emac. I also picked up injured Bryce Harper and injured Giancarlo Stanton along with healthy Francisco Lindor for a larger package of prospects. Making a run at the top spot. We'll see how it goes. First place is way off in the distance, but second and third are right there. And then we'll see. Only halfway through the season. Had to go for it. So anyway, top of the board, first game up, the Astros at the Blue Jays. If you didn't catch it, we just got big news in this one. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is not starting today. He was in the original lineup, and now he was scratched. Oh, and it looks like somebody is opening for the Brewers now as well. I didn't catch that before. Doesn't really matter. It's still going to be Bryce Wilson, I believe, as the bulk reliever. So on this run board, Houston looking pretty appealing. They're going up against Yadiel Rodriguez, who's probably only going 3 innings at most. 4.89, call it 4.90 implied total for the Astros. And then on the other side, a 4.20 implied total, which probably comes down by, quarter of a run or something like that, down toward a little bit closer to 4 with a lack of Vladdy. Not directly, necessarily the full 0.2 off of it, but somewhere it'll come down a little bit, I would think. And that feels high a little bit already against Hunter Brown, who's been pitching really, really well. So he's the top option on the board for the Astros. We've got another good pitcher going with Mackenzie Gore going for the Nats up against a pretty decent Mets squad. 4.11 implied total for the Mets. They're looking around like where the Blue Jays will probably land. And then going the other way, the Nationals with their interesting lineup, drawing a pretty low total at just 3.98 implied runs against David Peterson, the lefty from the Mets. And then the Brewers with an opener on the mound. It is Rob Zistrizny. I want to say Zistrizny. He and Yastrzemski should open a restaurant that nobody can pronounce. I'm pretty sure it's this. Fuck it, whatever that guy's name is. And then he's going to be followed by Bryce Wilson. And then for the Rockies, it is Austin Gomber. And Gomber's pushing a 6.35 implied total in the Brewers' direction. And the Rockies themselves, pretty interesting, coming back the other way at 5.27. And some interesting bats in that lineup. I'm not going to lie, I kind of like the Rockies here. So we'll take a look through all of it. That is our Vegas breakdown already. No weather concerns. Wind blowing out. As Ross quote, he's got it in green for Colorado. Warm with winds gently blowing out to right. Sounds like a nice day. It's like the kind of thing that you would say about, like, going for a picnic or something. Gently blowing out. Hunter Brown, top of the board, 93.85. Only guy cracking 30 and 15 on the projections board. Has been pitching solidly. Finding his strikeout upside. Really keeping runs in check. He's on a stretch of like 8 or 9 quality starts in a row. We'll count it up in a second. Bunch of strikeouts in all of those games. He's been really, really effective. I was actually trying to trade for him just yesterday. Did not pull that one off. He's going up against a stingy Blue Jays team, but one with a underperforming overall lineup and now missing their best hitter. So looks like a tremendous spot overall. He's even fairly priced at 93.85, especially on DraftKings at 85. That's just stupid cheap. Even a larger slate, he should be more expensive than that. On a 3-gamer, he should be $10K in that spot. Mackenzie Gore not far behind. I just kind of prefer the matchup against the Blue Jays at this point. There are probably more strikeouts in that Mets lineup, but not significantly more overall. And there are certainly a bunch of threats in that Mets lineup. So not the best spot, but Gore is easily the second best pitcher on this slate, if not the best on talent. It's between him and Hunter Brown easily. So I think they're an easy 1-2 that's just obvious off the top of the slate. And then after those two guys, you got to take a little bit more of a risk. Or, you've got David Peterson safely in the middle. He is an effective pitcher going back over time, and it seems like he's found his strikeout stuff a little bit more over the last 2. Struck out 14 hitters over 10 1/3 in his last 2 starts. So hopefully you get a little bit more reliability there. But I'm actually kind of considering some of those Washington bats against because I think he's fairly gettable. Bryce Wilson's pitching at Coors Field, and now he's working behind an opener, so that's no good. It's going to diminish the projection a little bit there, take away a lot of any potential win upside. So just really limits Bryce Wilson. It's a dart throw, I guess, at those prices, but taking the win potential away from him, I guess we got to check with this guy. Let's see if this guy's got a price. So, Zistrizny is 55 on FanDuel, and it's probably more relevant on DraftKings. He is 4,000 on the DraftKings slate. I will, I'll pull him up on Fangraphs, but we're not going to talk about him until we get over to that. Well, no, we can talk about him now real quick, I guess, since he's not on the board here, because I wasn't prepared for it. But looking by the numbers just real quick, 32-year-old lefty. Been working mostly in the minor leagues the past few seasons. Through 20 2/3 in 21 outings. One start, probably an opening appearance with Pittsburgh in the show last year. And then another handful of innings in AAA. So he was, in and out of the show a little bit that year, and then it had been a minute. For his career, he's thrown 59 1/3 in the show, has an 18.4% strikeout rate and 11.2% walk rate. He's been working one and change type of performances as far as innings pitched in the minor leagues this season. He last pitched, it looks like, on the 27th. So he's got a few days of rest under his belt, but I can't imagine you're getting more than 2 innings here. And he looked pretty low end. So I don't think, even for 4,000, it seems like Rob Zastryzny is a bit of a stretch in that like opener, but he only costs 4,000 kind of a role. If you want to look at it as there are only 6 pitchers overall, 7 if you count him, in the sense that 3-game slate, some people I know would target playing, some relievers for really cheap. So if you want to look at him through that sense as like a $4,000 square that is at least going to get a few hitters and could give you a handful of points, maybe, but it's only a dice roll from that perspective. He wouldn't project out for anything. He wouldn't be relevant, even in the sense like Austin Gomber is. But Wilson will be working behind him now, so that guy takes away, potentially ruins a little bit of Wilson's win upside. 7,400, 6,000, very cheap, but he's not all that good anyway, and he's pitching at Coors Field. Yadier Rodriguez has not completed many innings recently. Just an inning in his last start, faced only 4 Red Sox. Inning in a third, that was in a start/opening appearance. Inning in a third in the start before that, and then you got to go back to April. So he's really only, effectively working like an opener right now. Maybe he gives you 2, 3. That's what he was doing earlier in the season. He was giving you, 3, 4. It was really ugly there. Does Toronto have an announced? Oh, come on. Stupid ad thing. Okay, that's what it was. So the Boston game was the one that got delayed by rain and then rained out the other day. So don't sweat that was only an inning. I think we're probably looking at like 3, 4. So he's like loosely on the board just for a lack of options. And it's really only on DK, and it's 6,900. So you'd probably rather roll the dice with one of the Coors pitchers and maybe chase some innings. And in that sense, even though he's on the much worse side of it, Austin Gomber's probably a better option than Bryce Wilson or that opener, unless you're just taking the $4,000 square. Because at least Austin Gomber's actually getting a start. Like, he's starting the game, he's opening the game, and, pitching as long as he can and as well as he can. The problem there is he isn't all that good, and he's facing a pretty good Brewers team that looks pretty appealing here with the highest run total by far on the board. So when I say it's an ugly pitching slate, believe me, it is an ugly, ugly pitching slate. EMAC will steal you blind. He has an administration to fill. We can only hope. The Gombers actually pitched better at home this season, but the Brewers mash. You can look that up. We're going to it's 145. Again, 307 start. So we can kind of casually talk about some stuff here. I'll scroll back over to the side here so you guys can look at least. This is that first game. Blue Jays lineups updated with the Vladdy news. So just skipping ahead since people are probably making lineups and stuff right now, just to look at that real quick. I would say he's pitching a little bit better away. The ERA is higher on the road. But where'd it go? The xFIP is lower. 4.83 xFIP at home versus 4.28 on the road. He strikes out exactly 1 percentage point more, 15.8 at home versus 16.8 on the road. He walks 8.2 at home versus 6.1 on the road. He's decidedly mediocre in both situations. But actual runs allowed, yes, he has. He's found more success at home, if that makes sense. Pretty good one. Like, if you get this game that he had against the Dodgers on a 3-game slate with no other options, it's not completely terrible. 6 2/3, gave up 4 earned runs, 2 home runs, struck out just 3 and walked 2, but he got through the 6 2/3. If they could find a way to win the game for him, you can find upside there. But yeah, I think at best you could, given that it's actual results versus like under the surface numbers, at best you'd probably just call it a draw between the home road or let the slightly higher but still bad strikeout rate make that decision for you. Anyway, let's get into this first one up. Again, we've got 2 healthy totals here, 4.9 and 4.20. The Blue Jays again might come down. Let me see if we got that. Actually, it's probably up by now. See what that line looks like now. It's down a little, 8.5. So the Blue Jays, down to 4.09. I might as well update these on those real quick while I'm here. They are essentially the same. No need to update those. All right, so that one changes a little bit. Blue Jays get a little bit less appealing on the Vegas board. They even out basically with the Mets, like I was saying, was probably going to be the case. Makes the Astros look a little bit better by comparison to the 3 other non-Coors teams, and then the 2 Coors teams still standing pretty tall at the top of the board and pretty obvious. So, Jadiel, for the innings that he does pitch, and it's very limited again, 17 2/3 in 6 starts technically, but has not pitched more than 4 innings all season. He made 4 starts in April, missed all of May, most of June, came back on the 21st, and again faced 9 hitters over an inning and a third in that one. Struck out 1, walked 3, gave up 4 earned runs on just 2 hits, 5 runs total. That was against Cleveland at Cleveland in his return. Then he got rained out. He did face 4 Red Sox in that first inning. Got out of the inning with 1 walk, no strikeouts, no hits allowed. But obviously got rained out. I can't imagine he was going much more than 3 or 4. That's where we had him for that one. I think that's probably going to be the case again today. He had 2 effective first outings that we've talked about. Gave up 1 run in each game, 3 2/3 against Colorado, and then 4 innings against the Padres back in mid-April. Struck out 6 Rockies and then struck out 7 Padres. 1 earned run on a solo home run in both games. And then kind of messy the next 2. Gave up 3 earned and then 2 earned. And again, 3 2/3, 4 innings. So pitched into the 4th inning each time, but did not only completed the 4th twice. 3 2/3 in the other games. So call it 4 innings if you want to. But he's facing a really good Astros team. The Astros on the other side, by the way, without Jose Altuve. So that's another reason that the run total came down by a half a run for the game. So it is a somewhat more limited Astros lineup, too, than you would normally get. But they look like the stronger option here. They're showing some pretty healthy home run totals. They've got the best pitcher, so you're looking at a bunch of piled up stuff on the Astros side. I'm sure that Houston is going to get popular. But they seem like one of the top non-Coors stacks of the day, or the top non-Coors stack of the day. You get a very pricey Jordan Alvarez in the middle of the lineup, but he's always worth it, and especially against a pitcher like this. You can see the pretty monstrous 12.32 in the home run model. I was considering taking him for the home run pick of the day, but I figured he'd just be super obvious. He is the top name on the board, followed by Pete, Rhys Hoskins, and then I just went back to Michael Talia, because he's absolutely been raking. And we haven't actually caught it yet. We've been talking about his home run upside, and he's hit a bunch of them. He's up to 9 already. But we haven't drilled it as the home run pick yet, so wanted to go back there. Again, Coors is going to be popular too, but maybe Talia a little bit less so than a guy like Jordan Alvarez. Jake Myers with a 6.40 in the 2 spot in that lineup. 8 home runs already for him in just 242 plate appearances, a 178 ISO, creating runs 19% better than average. He's having a pretty interesting season. I've said it before. He's given us like the season in place of what Chas McCormick is supposed to be doing. He's just basically replicating those kind of numbers. It's about where Chas would be over that many plate appearances. McCormick's in the lineup today, but he's at the bottom of it. 147 plate appearances in. He's at 218, 279, 338, 24% worse than average creating runs, 3 homers, 5 steals. It's been pretty bad for McCormick, but he's been a guy that we've always gone to. He's making at least somewhat similar contact, striking out a little bit more in the small sample, walking a little bit less so far. But I feel like he'll come around and just be like a fairly priced or cheap option at the bottom of the lineup. That could start as soon as today against the pitcher like Jadiel. But Myers in the 2 spot for just 32-27, definitely interesting to consider in along with these more obvious Astros in the top of the lineup. I'm sure he'll get popular there because he's cheap and he's correlated, but he is an interesting name given the quality of the season he's having. Bregman, 9 home runs, a 149 ISO, 101 WRC plus. Taking a dip, he had hit a higher peak than this in his bounce back, but we're still believers in the bounce back. He's got a killer spot in the lineup today. He's still pretty cheap at $4,200 on DraftKings. He's very cheap, honestly. I think that's actually gone down since he was since the turnaround. So this is super appealing. And 3,100, not incorrect for the season that he's having so far this year, but could be higher on FanDuel. So nice, interesting part at the top of the lineup. 8.69 in the home run model. If nothing else, you're buying a third baseman with a ton of available contact against a pitcher with a 20% strikeout rate, a 9.5% swinging strike rate. Guy who's walking 14.1% against a hitter could certainly draw a walk. So I like Bregman. Top 3 for the Astros is pretty killer. Johnny Diaz is a very playable catcher, 47.5% hard hits on a 13.8% strikeout rate, means tons and tons of premium contact. He's delivered a 282, 307, 421. He's created runs 4% better than average. 7 home runs on the board this season. He's having a very nice year. You get him at a very good price in the cleanup spot in this lineup on a day where this team is more likely than not going to score some runs. So it makes him an incredibly appealing catcher, even as a one-off on DK. Like if you're not going Astros, you're trying to weave in some kind of like maybe he's not the top-owned piece from the Astros, so you can grab that, take care of your catcher position. You skip over the catchers at cores if you're going that way. I think he's very playable from that spot. John Singleton, up to 6 home runs. Just a 118 ISO, but he's 1% better than average creating runs. He does have a decent 40.5% hard hit, a 7.1% barrel. A lot of strikeouts, but he's drawing walks, 25.9, but 12.7% walks. So he's on the board. He's got a good spot in the lineup for a cheap price. He's a killer lefty bat. Not a killer lefty bat, but he's a lefty bat with some power upside against a mediocre righty. 6.40 in the home run model. Believable upside. Pena is at a good price at shortstop, $39,300. And if we're considering shortstops, you've got some mix and match quality ones on Toronto with the multi-position guys, and then you've got an underperforming Bo Bichette at the top of the lineup to use at shortstop. And then if you look across the other games, you do have Lindor on the board. You've got C.J. Abrams on the board. You've got Willy Adames at Coors Field, and you've got Tovar. So we've got some interesting shortstop options, despite it being a fairly short slate. I do think that probably means that among all the Astros, Jeremy Pena, or at least among all the higher-end Astros, Jeremy Pena probably goes by the wayside a little bit and probably goes by the wayside by comparison to a lot of the other shortstops on the board. Maybe Bo Bichette falls even more into that category, given that people will be using Hunter Brown, given how bad Bo Bichette's been. So it's the same story for both shortstops in this game. I think maybe they go a little under-owned for a 3-gamer with just, considering their talent level. Pena's been the better of the two this season by a little bit, but he's down to 277, 319, 376 after a strong start. 5 home runs, 10 steals, and 99 WRC+. He's a mixed bag, but 16.3% strikeouts, 4.7% walks. A lot of balls in play. Good spot in the lineup. Could provide correlated scoring with either the top or the bottom of their lineup. Mauricio Dubon, 31-27 with 4 positions on FanDuel. First base and outfield only on DraftKings is not ideal. If you're using him, you stick him in the outfield most likely. He's just kind of a placeholder guy at first base. He's got a decent bat in terms of the hit tool, but he's not really a run creator in terms of driving guys in or hitting for power or extra base hits. 293, 315, 409, but just a 115 ISO. He is creating runs 4% better than average because he's getting on and he's hitting for average a little bit, but it's more correlation than it is, not, like he'd correlate a little better this way maybe than he does that way, if that makes sense. Although, I mean, if 3 of these guys are on and he singles, that could be a 2 RBI single. So he is, of course, on the board. I like him a lot better for the cheaper price and with second base eligibility on FanDuel. Trey Cabbage, 23-21, a mix and match piece. He's had a good 51 plate appearances so far. 115 WRC plus, a home run, a steal, pretty decent slash line. And then McCormick I talked about already, but again, really underperforming this season. But there is a lot of talent there. Last year we had the breakout year, 22 homers, 19 steals, 216 ISO, 133 WRC plus. He had been good in other seasons, but he was more of a, hey, this guy's down the bottom of the lineup. Nobody really plays him. He's always cheap, and he hits the ball really hard, and he sometimes finds good results. This was just a complete season of 457 plate appearances, a mostly complete season of being really good. So if I can buy that hitter at less popularity than, say the 4 guys immediately above him in the lineup and just use them as a wraparound play, I'm happy to do that. I do think Hunter Brown's going to be our most popular. Hey, Jake. No problem, buddy. Steven saying probably had some luck with BABIP at home. Yeah, I would imagine. Pick 6 has the over-under on Hunter Brown fantasy points at 14.5, which seems low. Is that the DK scale? I would have to think. I mean, I've only got him at 15.18. We're not that far above 14.5, but yeah, I would take the over. The thing there, and that might be calculated, it might actually be a spot to buy it, honestly, if it's still available, because that might have been calculated against a lineup that had Vladdy in it. Not that this lineup gets much more high strikeout, because it inserted Ernie Clement in his 8.6% strikeout rate. So there are some absurdly low and difficult to strike out hitters in this lineup, but Hunter Brown is a good enough strikeout pitcher to find a couple bonus strikeouts along the way here. He could certainly get Dalton Varsho and Davis Schneider twice apiece to start things off. So you're at 4 there, and you're on your way. Yeah, so that probably was calculated against a lineup that was a little bit more threatening that had Vladdy in it. I know it's not all about strikeouts. I know we're talking about fantasy points, but obviously there's a connection there. So this lineup got a little bit easier for Hunter Brown, who I do think, again, is a very good pitcher. Like, I think the way he's been pitching recently is his talent level. Above average stuff plus rating across the full arsenal at 104. He's given up a few home runs, but they've come, as usual, on really, really limited hard hits. 32.3% hard hits, 86.7 miles an hour of exit velo. Just a 9.9 degree average launch is pretty good. Just a 4.5% barrel rate. So he lost a few home runs. That's where the 3.49 comes from. He gave up 1 2 starts ago, but he's only given up that 1 in his last 4 starts. Gave up 2 in a start going back before that stretch. But that would make it only 3 in his last 6 outings. All of those outings were quality starts. He's actually on a run of 7 quality starts in a row. Yeah, 7 quality starts in a row. Over that stretch, he hasn't given up more than 3 runs. He gave up 3 once. He gave up 2 once. Every other start, he's given up none. 1 or fewer. Sorry. Over the full stretch of 7 games, we're talking about 7 earned runs total. He only struck out 3 in the first game of that run back on May 22nd against the Angels. Every other game, he struck out at least 6, with 3 of those games being 7 strikeouts, 2 of those games being 9 strikeouts, and a 6 strikeout game. So, again, he's been really good. He did have a nice stretch of opponents in there. The Angels, the Mariners, the Twins, which is obviously a good team. The Angels again, the Tigers, the White Sox, and the Rockies. So it's a really soft run of opponents. You got to say that. But again, I do think the way he's been pitching is around his talent level. 11% swinging strikes is very solid. He's got a 4.37 ERA and an even better 3.54 xFIP. He's obviously giving us a bunch of innings if he's giving us those quality starts. And he was similar last year in that he had a 5.09 ERA, but a 3.52 xFIP. Very, very similar. 26.8% strikeout rate is, relatively close to that. He walked a few, fewer hitters, but was roughly around that same kind of territory. Similar swinging strike numbers, even similar home run numbers, but he was allowing much, much more premium contact last year, despite it being on a lower launch angle. So he sacrificed a little bit of, more higher line drive type trajectory, but on weaker contact. So by a lot of measurements, it looks like he's pitching better as far as the contact goes, which would lead to lower run output, which it has. The xFIP is around the same, which also reflects that. So I think he's easily the top option on the board. I believe in the projection. The projection does reflect to a degree the low strikeout nature of the opponent, but he's got a lot of upside. The only thing is you're going to have to deal with a lot of popularity. I like the idea of just including him in your lineups, even if you're going like 1-2 with these guys, with Gore and Brown, if you can figure out how to pay for it the right way. Just make a couple different decisions with your hitters. It's such a short slate that getting different with hitters is kind of paramount anyway, just for spreading around the board to a lot of different possibilities that are available within a slate on which their odds of being one of the better plays, like these down lineup guys, a Trey Cabbage, a Chas McCormick, who are going to be lower owned by comparison to a larger slate, their odds of being a key component tonight go up just on the fact that there are fewer options available. So it is a night to spread out options like that anyway. So I think that just helps get to pitcher chalk, and it just kind of makes sense to approach it that way. Otherwise, you're just kind of throwing darts. Not that there's, by the reverse, there's nothing wrong with throwing your darts at pitcher. It's just, you're doing it at higher cost, higher risk. If you're looking at the Blue Jays, I do think that Bo Bichette off the top, again, probably going to go under-owned for how cheap he is for his talent level. But over 297 plate appearances, he really hasn't been that guy this year. 233, 286, 335, just a 102 ISO, a 78 WRC+. It's been really ugly. He's had those 4 home runs and 4 steals since, I want to say, like April. It's been a minute since Bo's been good. I know that he was on the IL for a little bit. He's back for a minute. We're basically clinging to the hard hit rate, which is about the same as it was last year, and the low strikeout rate with a medium walk rate. 6.37 coming through in the home run model against a pitcher who has given up some home runs, but doesn't have the characteristics of a bad home run pitcher. I do think Bo's playable given the probability of coming in under-owned, and I do think that the price is, it's probably low even for his struggles, just given how good we know this guy is. So definitely think you could start a Blue Jays stack that way. Definitely think you could use Bo as a one-off in lineups that don't have Hunter Brown at pitcher, which addresses people usually ask on shorter slates about using hitters against your pitcher. For me, that's a 2-game only kind of a move, but on 3 you could probably get away with it. More likely than not, it's not going to completely destroy your pitcher. If we're talking about just, I needed a guy who would hit a double and score one run of the day and got me 7-8 fantasy points at that spot. It was cheap and it worked out. If it's that kind of a move, then fine. I don't think you want to be looking at multiple hitters against your pitcher or anything like that. But if you're talking about one that's a bargain in a good lineup spot, who is potentially going to be under-owned, kind of like Bo Bichette, then maybe you can get away with it. But it's still not my favorite move. For me, that's more often than not just a 2-game kind of a move. Spencer Horwitz, on-base machine, 457 on-base percentage over 70 plate appearances. He's hit 2 home runs, 455 slugger, 145 ISO, creating runs 67% better than average so far. Doing exactly what he's supposed to do. Not really striking out, 12.9% strikeouts in the small sample, 17.1% walks. Hasn't hit for a ton of power, but has a little bit of pop in that bat. 10.9% barrel rate is quality. Small sample of batted ball events, But he's a quality player, 2,800 second base, first base on FanDuel, 4,000 first base, second base on, same positioning on DraftKings. Justin Turner hitting third, not ideal, 36-28. He's kind of stabilized what was a just plummet from being from his really good start. He's still getting on base, 354 on base, so that keeps his WRC plus alive and interesting as a correlated scoring option. 114 WRC plus, 14% better than average creating runs, second best on the team. But 250, 354, 377, just a 127 ISO, 5 home runs. He's making a lot of contact and he's drawing his walks. That's what you typically want out of Justin Turner, but they were looking for more than that from him, I think. And like given the spot in the lineup today, I think it's a situation where like he's kind of expected for more than that. He's a playable piece. Put the ball in play a few times, make good contact against Hunter Brown, and he's in play. 36 at third base on DraftKings, 28 on FanDuel. It's affordable. It's easy enough to get to. If you're stacking up Blue Jays, you're not really, going out of your way to skip them necessarily. George Springer for 38-29. Came to life with a couple home runs the other day. He's up to 8 homers and 8 steals, but everything else has been pretty mediocre. A 126 ISO, just a 7.1% barrel, 35.3% hard hits. It's been really limited this season, but good spot in the lineup now, hitting cleanup in this version of the lineup today. So if you're going to the Blue Jays, he's absolutely included in your stacking plans. If you're determined to one-off a Blue Jay, he's on that list. Probably for me behind Bo Bichette, and then you could take your pick of whether or not he's behind guys like Spencer Horwitz, Davis Schneider. For me, I'd still probably rather go Springer more often than not. Davis Schneider, with apologies to IKF, who we'll get to in a second. Schneider's all power, 10 home runs in 269 plate appearances, a 195 ISO, creating runs 7% better than average, but 216, 312, 411. Not a lot of consistency, fairly high strikeout. Decent walk rate, makes okay contact. I say okay because it's 13.6% barrels, which is very good, but 34.6% hard hits, which is weak and doesn't really reflect that kind of a barrel rate. So he's mixed, but definitely in play, much more so for me than IKF. Connor Falefa, second base and shortstop eligible on DraftKings for 34. 4 positions on FanDuel for 27. Keeps him interesting. He is slashing 292, 338, 420. He's got a 117 WRC plus, which leads second on the team, leads the team among more complete plate appearance samples. He has 7 home runs this year. He's just not this good of a hitter over an extended stretch. Any given slate, he can give you upside. So he is in play. If you're stacking Blue Jays, he can go into lineups. No issues with it. But he's just know that he's not that good a hitter. Hit tool, yes. Power, no. Let's put it that way. Alejandro Kirk, bat-wise, I prefer Danny Jansen. But the Blue Jays, glove-wise, prefer Alejandro Kirk. 206, 289, 298, a 71 WRC plus, 2 homers. Pretty weak slash line. Pretty weak contact. Doesn't really strike out, can draw a walk, but is probably more of an afterthought at the catcher position on a short slate. Ernie Clement, a mix and match piece. Very low strikeout rate, a lot of balls in play with an 8.6% strikeout and 2% walk so far. That's over 152 plate appearances. It's just he's not exactly wrecking the ball when he makes contact with it. But he's playable. I think 2 out of those 3 home runs came against the Yankees. So Hunter Brown, Astros bats, Blue Jays bats, would not play Yadiel really. Well, I mean, shouldn't say would not because it's a short slate. FanDuel, I really don't think you do because I really don't think you're doing anything approaching that quality start. Maybe you don't need the quality start if everybody goes pop. So like maybe if you're playing a Blue Jay stack against Hunter Brown and you're going like Blue Jays, Mets, so that you get the double barrel against the top 2 pitchers as far as a contrarian lineup, and then maybe you go to a cheap Yadiel there and just figure, all right, if those 2 guys aren't getting the quality start or the win or anything anyway, I know that there's no win in the Brewers game or a quality start there for the Brewers pitcher. I know that more likely than not, Austin Gomber's not going to get to the quality start, let alone the win. So if you're targeting Hunter Brown and Mackenzie Gore with the Mets, That's probably the only way I would potentially get to Yadiel on FanDuel. And even then, I'd probably still rather have David Peterson for a little bit more. It's just a matter of what that difference price-wise pays for. But that would be a wildly contrarian angle into the slate. Blue Jays, and you would need a one-off with it, by the way. Blue Jays, Yadiel. The fun way to do that would be go 3 Blue Jays, 4 Mets, Jordan Alvarez, and Yadiel Rodriguez. That would be fun. That would be a creative lineup. I don't know if you can afford it, but that would be the wacky way to put that one together. Nobody's building that. Anyway, let's get off this game. 2 games to go. It is 2:12, and we've got a start coming up in less than an hour. Can we get there? Can we finish the show before the slate locks? I think we can. Hit the like button for me. Hit the subscribe. Jump into our Discord. Follow the @rotoscouts Twitter handle. Check out our pals over at acemind.io. If you're new here, AceMind, Optimizer, Sims, all the major sports. Lowest pricing in town for those kinds of products. 3-day free trial anytime you go over there and check them out. When you decide to subscribe, promo code rotoscouts like you see on the screen there. All in caps. Gets you 20% off your first month. Steven saying, if I was playing a hitter versus a pitcher, it would be a Rockies if you're going to throw a dart at Wilson. Yeah, by that same token, that's a good way to approach it. I just don't love the Wilson play. Yeah, I don't think you're wrong there, Steven, as far as that over with Hunter Brown. Like I said, it's projected there. It's just projected a little bit closer to the borderline. But that's primarily because of the limited strikeouts that we spoke of. And I think he's got more than enough to get you to that line. And then it's just a matter of for DFS purposes, we're talking about ceiling against the median projection. But getting to that median projection, I think is easily in play. I think that's a soft line. 8 games here waving his pink hand. Good to see you, buddy. I don't think we've got either of these lineups. This is the 6 o'clock game. There's 6:40 game. So Mackenzie Gore starting there, the easier of the 2 pitchers to talk about. A 3.60 ERA with a 3.56 xFIP. He's been tremendous this year, putting a few too many guys on base, but largely looks like it's coming through BABIP, given only a 7.5% walk rate around the average. So perfectly fine as far as the walks go. 12.9% swinging strikes, 26.4% CSW. Could stand to throw a few more called strikes in there, and then his strikeout rate would go up even further. But 26.6 is very strong and one of the highest available on the slate, if not the highest. Last year he was at 25.9, the year before 23.3. So just appreciable growth from a pretty talented young pitcher. 6.3% barrels allowed this year, 34.9% hard hits, just 87.1 miles an hour of exit velo allowed, doing a lot of the same things. Actually, this year was bumpy for power. I thought he was better at limiting power than that. In my memory, he was better at limiting power, but he's doing it this year, which is all that matters. He is a fly ball trajectory pitcher. We're getting a lot of weak and medium contact out of him. Stuff Plus really likes the arsenal, 114 rating by Stuff Plus, probably our top Stuff Plus pitcher on the board. Yep. So Gore giving you as good, if not better, of a season as Hunter Brown. Slightly higher strikeout rate. Slightly better rating by Stuff Plus. They're solid 10 points better. What was Brown? He was like 4 points above, right? Yeah, almost exactly 10 points better. So through a lot of different prisms, Mackenzie Gore is actually the best pitcher on this slate. He's facing a Mets team that is similarly low strikeout, but slightly more gettable at 20.4% compared to where those Blue Jays were. Just a better lineup, top to bottom, I think. More threatening in a lot of ways. The Mets are kind of on a roll. Not that there's anything predictive about that, but it reflects the just overall quality of their lineup, I think. A lot of guys in this lineup now with 200-plus ISOs. Pretty solid. And I mean, Frankie Lindor could easily be included in that group. We've got Vientos down here as well. It's a lot of pop in this Mets lineup now. Number of very good right-handed hitters, too. If this is the version of the lineup, Brendan Nimmo would be the only lefty for Mackenzie Gore. They can get on base. They can steal bases. This is an intriguing Mets lineup to stack up against him if you want to draw down against one of the certainly going to be more popular pitchers on the slate. So I think it's both-sided there. You can absolutely fire away with Mackenzie Gore. He's easily the second best option on the slate projection-wise, right next to Hunter Brown as far as projection and price and probably as popularity as well. But I'm equally intrigued by the Mets bats. Peterson on the other side for 7,300, 8,600. The price fit on FanDuel, he is cheaper than the top options on the board, and he's the only non-Coors guy. If you're not going to Yadiel Rodriguez and you don't want to use Coors Field, well, I got bad news for you. You're either using the chalk or you're using David Peterson, who himself, I'm sure, will be very popular on this slate. He might even be more popular. Let me see. See what we got for ownership, let's say. Third on FanDuel, which makes sense. DraftKings is the key. Where is he going to be on DK? Also third on DK, but not as much separation as one might think between him and Brown and Gore. So I would say the most popular combination of pitchers is probably actually going to be Brown Peterson or Gore Peterson. Those two easily the top, both over 50% owned. So a lot of people obviously will be putting those two together as well. But I think using Peterson for the discount with either of those guys outstrips putting those two guys together as far as popularity of combination goes. Then you've got Bryce like half again as owned as Peterson. Jadiel, another 10 points behind that. And then Gomber and I'm just going to call him Rob Z are very limited. Does look like you get into the low single digits of ownership on DraftKings for that $4,000 price tag for Rob Zombie here. But again, I think it's dicey. He's not all that good. It's low strikeout. I think it's just like he is left-handed, so therefore we will let him open the game rather than like we've got a good dominant take the top 2 innings off of our opponent kind of a power arm here. Doesn't seem like that kind of guy. So Peterson's going to be crazy popular as well. So by the exact same token, rostering some Nats against him is going to be a little bit more contrarian. Like it seems like everybody's probably going to the Astros and Coors Field, the way these games align. So I do think you could pick off a little bit lower ownership maybe around some of these key bats. But Peterson very, very much in play. He projects pretty well. He doesn't project all that far behind Mackenzie Gore on the other side. You could say that that's unfair, especially given what he's done so far this year if you're just looking at those numbers. 27 innings, he got just a 16.5% strikeout rate, 10.7% walks, a 3.67 ERA, which is fine, but a 4.85 xFIP underneath is not good. A 1.48 whip is way too many guys on base, sub 10% swinging strike rate, a bad CSW. He's given up a lot of premium contact, but has gotten lucky. And, well, he not necessarily lucky because he does keep the ball down as a focus. So the hard hits and exit velo aren't all that bad. 8.3% barrels, though, means he has missed a few times and gotten dinged, and that doesn't necessarily reflect that high of a barrel rate in a small sample. So probably has gotten lucky on one or two shots. Depends on what the launch angle was. But if we look back over the last couple seasons with Peterson, strikeout rate was much higher. The walks have always been an issue. He's always been 10+% walks, but that came with 26% strikeouts last year, 27.8% strikeouts the year before, 12.3% swinging with a 28.4% CSW last year. The ERA, the xFIP were reversed. Last year it was a 5.03 ERA, which is bad, but a 3.60 xFIP, which is a lot better. So there's believable strikeout upside for Peterson, and he's shown it in the last two starts. 4 1/3 against the Yankees the other day. Just gave up 3 hits. One of them was a home run. He struck out 8, but he walked 5. Really an efficient outing, but not a bad outing in terms of the quality of stuff. The strikeout total is obviously tremendous. Just gets you to a lot of pitches in a short amount of time. So he misses the quality start. He misses the win bonus and all of that. Went 6 innings in the start before that. That was at Texas against the Rangers. I gave up 2 earned runs. It would be weird if it was at Texas against somebody else. Went 6, gave up 2 earned runs, including a home run, but only 4 hits. Struck out 6, but walked 3. Another day, not as efficient as he could have been, but he did go 6. He went 6 2/3 against this Nationals team back on June 4th. Nothing predictive about this, but that's a decent start for depth. It was just his second start of the year. Gave up 2 runs on 5 hits. Struck out only 2, but walked only 2. They're a fairly low strikeout bunch over here as well. A lot of low strikeout teams on this slate. 18.4% for this projected lineup for the Nats. So you got the Mets at just 20.4, 18 over here. You got the Astros at 19, the Blue Jays at 17. If you could take like a global strikeout under for this entire slate, might be a good one to do it. If I'm targeting bets in this game, I'm probably, well, it's tough because the Mets are a much, much better lineup, and they do look all right. I think you're probably more likely to stumble across a few runs against David Peterson between the two pitchers. But between the two lineups, if we're just looking for good players, it favors the Mets. So you can take it whichever way you find it. If you have a specific target in mind as far as ownership, it's not like there's all that much separation on the board in Vegas anyway. So similar upside for both teams. A lot of interesting bets on the Nationals as well, but more probably just, or at least more established ones on the Mets side. Starting with Frankie Lindor, who again I just acquired this weekend, so we're hoping for a big start to the week from Frankie today. 8.75 in the home run model. He's got 13 on the season. He's stolen 15 bases, a 190 ISO, creating runs 17% better than average. Apparently Mike wasn't able to pawn him off on anybody else in the league. He's got a few years left too. So I've got him for a few seasons going forward at a fair price. But we've been talking about him all season, so I felt like I was maybe at a little bit of an advantage in that trade situation because we've spent most of this year talking about how he's not far off or he's better than what his previous season marks have been in everything we care about when it comes to how he actually is swinging the bat versus what the results of those swings have been. And the results of those swings have not been bad. So I was really happy to acquire him when nobody else wanted. Not that it helped me on the price. I gave up a monster package of prospects for those guys, but I got a lot out of it. And I think he belongs in a lot of lineups today. $4,900 is a very cheap price for even this version of Francisco Lindor. He is not bad at all. One of the top shortstops in the league and easily one of the top ones on a 3-game slate. 36 on FanDuel. They've got it at least closer to correct, if not actually correct. This is just way low. Nimmo for $47.34. Very fairly priced for a guy who gets on base at a 367 clip. Has a 200 plus ISO. Has a 12.1% barrel rate with 49.3% hard hits. Draws a ton of walks. Has 13 home runs on the season. Creating runs 39% better than average. Nimmo's tremendous. Lefty for Nimmo. Where are we at this season? Oops. Splits. Come on. Why is this not cooperating? Splits. There we go. 256, 330, 463 with a 207 ISO. Finding more of his power. Same-handed. Has always been, if I'm remembering correctly, has always been pretty good same-handed. Yeah. Almost identical numbers. A little bit lower in terms of the on-base. Certainly a lower ISO, same-handed, but has always been effective. Strikes out slightly more, draws fewer walks overall. The lower power number is fine because he's still an on-base machine either way. So happy to have Nimmo there. Maybe some other people, skip over him for the lefty, or to get a little bit cheaper with JD Martinez, who's a tremendous option in the third spot in the lineup. 9 home runs, a 204 ISO. Big time right-handed power. just doing JD Martinez kind of things. 17.6% barrel rate is one of the top marks in the league. Tremendous option for $45.29. He's very cheap on FanDuel. He's very cheap on DraftKings as well, but that FanDuel price kind of stands out. Pete Alonso for $5,000, $3,300. Very cheap for a guy with 17 home runs, a 229 ISO. Another big time power bat from the right side. Easy enough to put at first base. Not a bad price on him. The only Met over 5,000 on the DraftKings slate, 33 on FanDuel. Feels a little bit light. He's not delivering as much in terms of average. We're at 245 this year. Where was he last year? I don't know. Last year he was at 217. Year before it was 271. So he's just kind of cratered in the average department, but he's picked it up a little bit, I guess, this year, and the on base has gone up slightly with that. The power output is maybe a little bit down. We were at a 287 ISO last year with 46 home runs over 658. In half as many plate appearances, we're not quite halfway there. We're at 17. So that's not half of 46, but I could pick up the upside on the second half and get to that 46 still with Alonso. So a lot of faith in the power bat there. Francisco Alvarez for 38 is very cheap where you need to play catchers. 29, he's playable on the FanDuel slate too. He's only hit 4 home runs so far in 116 plate appearances. I say only, but because of just the tear that he was on for power early last year. But he's had a much better, for my money, 116 opportunities so far this year. 301, 371, 505, 204 ISO, 152 WRC plus. He's been really good hitting the ball. He's not striking out as much this year. He's drawing a few more walks. Still small sample. Could normalize back the other way. But I would take these numbers with, upper medium kind of power and sacrifice a little bit of the extreme power upside for this guy, this guy who gets on base a lot. So very good option. He's having a nice little year in his limited action this year. Tyrone Taylor for $31.25. Playable part, 4 home runs, 6 stolen bases. Some history against left-handed pitching of success, of hitting the ball hard. So if you're mixing and matching your way through late lineup options, he's like a Chas McCormick. You can certainly stick him in there. He's got a better spot in there in the Mets lineup than McCormick does at the bottom of the Astros. Mark Vientos for $35.31 is still ludicrously cheap on DraftKings. He's got 10 home runs and 146 plate appearances. A 280 ISO, a 165 WRC plus, a 15.8% barrel rate. And as I said about him multiple times last week, this is who he's supposed to be. I don't know what the hell he's doing priced at $3,500. He's been starting every day at third base for the last month for the Mets. I do not know how they arrived at 35. He's the same price as James Wood, who is a tremendous prospect, but literally making his first plate appearance of his entire major league career tonight. Mark Vientos has been here for a minute, and he's hit 10 home runs already. If James Wood has 10 home runs this time next month, I'll be saying he shouldn't be $3,500 either. But there's no way in hell that Mark Vientos should be $3,500 on this slate. That is a major bargain. He shouldn't be 31 on FanDuel, honestly. He should be higher than that. Tremendous option late in the Mets lineup. Jose Iglesias, nice little story for the Mets so far over his 43 plate appearances. Been super productive. Been part of a lot of their rallies and their upstart. He gave a concert in Citi Field the other day. Apparently he's a singer as well. $2,800 on DraftKings at second base if he's in the lineup. $2,300 on FanDuel multi-position. He's a mix and match piece. He's not going to sustain this kind of production for very long, but nice little story. Bader, pretty playable at $3,500, $2,800. Decent production, 6 homers, 11 steals. Moderately good triple slash, 108 WRC plus. Not a bad mix and match option, but another guy where Mark Vientos should just be more expensive than Harrison Bader is right now. Just to illustrate how dumb that price is. I love this option on DraftKings. If you go to the national side of the board, CJ Abrams, last time we looked, was performing better this year, lefty, than he had last year. Last year it was a problem. And we're still there. Out to 93 plate appearances right now versus 239 against right-handed pitching. Same handed, we're at 318, 355, 534 with a 216 ISO. creating runs 49% better than average. That's versus a 269, 340, 505 with a 236 ISO, 135 WRC plus. He hits has hit for slightly more power this year against righties. 10 of his 13 home runs have come against righties. Slightly higher ISO, but he's been great for, ISO. The ISO is above 200 in same-handed plate appearances. So big steps forward. Last year, against same-handed pitching last year in 169 plate appearances, he was at 166, 240, 272 with a 106 ISO and a 40 WRC plus. So when I say those are tremendous strides in the split, take it to the bank. I mean, that is a major improvement. 283, 344, 513 for the season, 13 homers, 14 steals, 139 WRC plus. He's been great over 332 plate appearances. He was part of that package. I think, was it all three of these guys? What was that trade package? Yeah, it was all three of these guys. The Juan Soto trade from the Nationals to the Padres, and bear in mind you're talking about trading away. I think at the time he was 23, 24? 23, 24-year-old Juan Soto with a couple of years of control left. So there's no way you're actually getting equivalent value. But in terms of I collected very close to, a handful of change that equals that dollar bill, they got all three of C.J. Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, and debuting today, James Wood in that deal. Along with Luke Voigt, who they pawned off and he became something else. I don't know what they turned him into. Robert Hassel and Yarlin Susana. I don't know what's going on with Hassel or Susana right now. Let's see. Oh, he's actually still high. He's their 2 prospect right now. I should know that, given that I'm in the middle of a minor league draft. Yeah, so they've got more to come out of that deal. So they did well. If you're going to make a deal for Juan Soto with years of control at that young in his career, at least they got paid to do it. Lane Thomas, 54-36 off the top, 8 home runs, 17 stolen bases, a 178 ISO, 102 WRC plus. Was better last year, but has really come around a little bit with the bat now. Stolen bases are ticking back up. The WRC plus is ticking back up. He's got a ways to go, but the premium contact is kind of on the way. 7.9% barrels, 43.6% hard hits. Pricey at the top of the lineup, but where else are you going to spend your money on a 3-game slate? So if you're targeting David Peterson, Lane Thomas from the right side, definitely a key option in that Nationals lineup. Ildemaro Vargas, if he's in the lineup, switch hitter, 27-23, multi-position eligible on both sites. Just a contact and correlated scoring type of a piece. You can see 0.8% barrels this year, 29.3% hard hits. No home runs, a .076 ISO. He hits right ahead of Harold Ramirez, who is a better version of that, let's say. Harold Ramirez for years has been a good line drive hitter. Good hard hit rates, as you can see, the last 2 years, 40.7 and 40.9%. But just medium barrels, 4.6, 4.8% the last 2 years, 3.4% this year. Just 3.8% hard hits this year. It's kind of down fairly significantly. Got himself released out of Tampa Bay, caught on with the Nats. Now he's been hitting in the middle of their lineup. 271, 285, 320, but just a .050 ISO, 75 WRC plus from Ramirez so far this season. Hasn't really been good. Last year in that the heart of that Rays lineup, over 434, though, he hit 12 home runs, which is a bit of an uptick in power for him. 313, 353, 460 with a 128 WRC plus. You can see just a 148 ISO. That reflects a little bit of the more line drive nature than home run nature of the hitter. But he's a good hitter. He's underperforming his talent so far this year. Very good spot in the lineup if he's hitting 2, 3, 4, somewhere in that territory, even 5. Cheap price against a medium quality lefty who's been struggling in some departments this year. If I'm stacking Nats, I'm not necessarily skipping Harold Ramirez if he's in the lineup. Nick Senzel, a lot more skippable. He does have 7 home runs. He is a righty hitter. Mediocre contact so far this season. really not showing why he's justifying a roster spot at this point, despite being, other than having once upon a time been a top prospect in the league or top 5 prospect or whatever he peaked at. I've got 47 text messages since this show started. Hopefully all about the minor league draft. So Senzel, more skippable, but a mix and match piece, especially if he's in the heart of the lineup. He's very, very cheap. He's not going to be all that popular, so I think you can get there. It's just, there are nats that I like around him a little bit better. Joey Meneses for 3,400, 2,700. Another righty who's just really underperforming. 230, 291, 306, a .075 ISO, just a 70 WRC plus, 3 homers, 2 steals. We go back in time with Meneses. Decent slash line last year, but just ended up with 13 home runs and 657 plate appearances. We were expecting better power given that he hit 13 home runs and 240 the year before. He went 324, 367, 563 in that sample. He looked fantastic. And that's, not a full sample by any means, but it's not a tiny sample either. And then was good with the bat, but the power disappeared last year, and now it's all just kind of evaporated. If he's in the lineup, which he probably will be, you can mix and match your way through Joey Meneses shares, but by no stretch of the imagination is he a favored play on this slate. Keeper Ruiz, you're just buying a lot of contact, 13.1% strikeouts and 3.6% walks, but failing to really barrel the ball or drive it all that well this year. Hit 18 home runs last year, just 4 so far this year in 222 plate appearances. Halfway to the league average is in terms of run creation. Jacob Young from the 9 spot, 328 on base is all right, 19 stolen bases. On a short slate, you could wrap Jacob Young around and not be necessarily making a mistake. Just a 93 WRC plus. Another guy who hits a little bit but doesn't really hit for power. Just low strikeout, put the ball in play, use your speed kind of a guy. They've got a lot of those guys. They need to kind of configure this lineup a little bit better. But there are mix and match parts up and down this lineup. And then I know I skipped over James Wood. I've referred to him a few times, but he is their top prospect. Per Underdog, a tweet that I put into Discord earlier, the highest WRC plus by a qualified AAA hitter age 21 or younger since 2006. In reverse order, the top 5 of that list: 2010 Freddie Freeman at 141, 2007 Adam Jones, if you remember him, at 144, 2011, and is again going back to 2006, 2011 Anthony Rizzo at 152, 2018 Kyle Tucker at 155 is in second because now James Wood is number 1 at 173, and that is with qualification on it. So that is a monster WRC plus. The kid has been awesome in the minors for them. Really been looking forward to this debut. Not Alex Wood. There he is. So far in AAA this season, 231 plate appearances, 10 home runs, 10 stolen bases, slashing 353, 463, 595 with that 173 WRC plus, a 242 ISO, 18.2% strikeouts, and 17.3% walks. He's pretty good. 26 homers across high A and double A last year with 18 stolen bases. Struck out more last year at those levels, but has dramatically cut that at a higher level this year. And again, playing at AAA at just age 21. Young kid. Getting a shot. I love what these incentives for these teams are doing as far as getting these call-ups early. I was talking about it yesterday in reference to the minor league draft. I just love getting college players that you know are going to help you pretty quickly. So, tremendous bat. I'm glad he's on both sites. 2,600 on FanDuel, absolute bargain for the talent. 3,500 on DraftKings, absolute bargain for the talent. Mark Vientos should be more expensive. Let's move on for this one. Both pitchers, very playable. Number 2 and number 3 on the board, respectively. Both going to be super popular around half of all lineups on DraftKings for both of these guys and Hunter Brown. It goes probably Mackenzie Gore, David Peterson, and then Mets bats, Nationals bats. But I do think all 4 sides of this one are pretty playable on a 3-gamer. And then this game takes place at Coors Field. We've got, the hell was that guy's name? Joey Zaza opening for the Brewers. We looked at his numbers at the top of the show. There was nothing at all special about him. Sub 20% strikeout rate, pretty mediocre numbers. Is in his mid-30s and has spent most of the last few years in the minor leagues. He is just not really a good option. He's going to give you 2 to 5 DraftKings points for your 4,000. So you could probably do better paying for a real pitcher and getting a $4,000 bat or one of these, $3,500 bats. Let's say, like, just put Mark Vientos in your lineup for $3,500 or James Wood in your lineup for $3,500. And spend $500 less than making a mistake at pitcher. It's just a better option. He's going to be followed by Bryce Wilson, who now is not going to have the same kind of upside toward a win bonus. He only costs $6,000. He's thrown 74 innings. He's got a 3.89 ERA, but a 4.65 xFIP underneath. 19% swinging strikeout rate, which on this slate is one of the better options, oddly. But he falls short of obviously the real options. It actually, I think, goes in Gore, Brown, Peterson, Wilson. Or no, actually Wilson's, I guess, is higher than even Peterson so far this year. Because Peterson's at this ridiculous rate. The normal version of Peterson has a better higher strikeout rate. The real version of him. So 8.4% walks, an elevated xFIP, a very limited swinging strike rate in CSW. He worked in bulk the last game. He did get the win in that one. He went 6, allowed just 3 hits, struck out 4, walked none, gave up no earned runs. That was against the Rangers. If you get that kind of performance, it's a winning day from Bryce Wilson, obviously. You got to get the win bonus along with it, I suspect. But like I talked about with the quality start bonus with that ridiculous configuration I mentioned on FanDuel, maybe you need it less from your SP2 on DraftKings today. He's playable, but it is not appealing. 74 on FanDuel, I think you just skip it. You have no shot at a quality start, obviously. Limited chance at the win. Pitching in Coors Field, you only need one pitcher anyway. You're not getting as big a discount. Just seems really rough. Gomber on the other side. We talked about the numbers a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 starts in a row of at least 3 earned runs allowed. 4 starts in a row of at least 4 earned runs allowed. Strikeout high of 4 over that stretch. Had a really good game at Oakland back on May 22nd before that stretch began. Went 8 innings against the A's. Struck out 6, no walks, just 1 run on a solo homer, 5 hits. That was a great start. It's pretty good for 6 innings in the start before that, and had a decent little stretch there. Game at San Diego, game at Pittsburgh, and a home game against the Rangers. He's pretty low in, though. I mean, it adds up over 15 starts to 81 2/3 with a 4.63 ERA, a 4.52 xFIP, a 16.3% strikeout rate, just 8.5% swinging, 26.8% CSW. He's going up against a good Brewers team with a lot of interesting bats, with a lot of good run creators, and guys who can draw walks and get on base against him. And they're at a 6+ total, by far the highest on the board today. Just seems like a pretty rough spot to be drawing pitching. Especially, again, with that gentle breeze blowing out on a warm day in Coors Field. Doesn't seem all that appealing to me, but I guess for 65, as much as Bryce Wilson is as a follower or as a bulk reliever, at 6,500, Austin Gomber's got to at least be on the list a little bit. So you can throw the dart on DK. At 7,900, I do think it's probably the better of the 2 darts in the Coors Field game, just given that he would have the quality start potential. Unlikely, but at least he would be eligible for a quality start. Bryce Wilson out of the gate, not eligible for a quality start. Jadiel, probably not giving you the innings to get there. Peterson, questionable. These 2, much better shots at it. But in a weird way, Gomber's probably your 3rd best option if you're hunting just for that quality start bonus. He's probably not going to get there on runs, but if we're talking about inning qualifiers and actually starting the game qualifiers, he's probably 3rd. Which shows how bad this pitching slate is. It's all about bats in Coors Field as usual. Again, the Brewers definitely better between these 2 teams. Joey Ortiz has been out of the lineup for a couple of days. We'll see whether or not we get him. If he's in the lineup, especially if he's leading off, he's a tremendous option. $4,800 is probably a little bit cheap for him on DraftKings. 33 on FanDuel is about right-ish. Love the second base eligibility over there. Third base only on DraftKings. Guy's getting on at a 380 clip with a 275 average. Creating runs 39% better than average with a 180 ISO, 7 homers, 5 steals. Doing a little bit of everything. Not striking out, 16.3% strikeouts, 13.9% walks. He has been absolutely tremendous for them over 251 plate appearances. Really good player. William Contreras, 6,300, 3,700 at Coors Field. I'll absolutely pay for that catcher bat. 291, 352, 436. Just a 145 ISO, but 9 home runs. Effectively good contact. Very good premium contact. 50.4% hard hits to lead the team. 8.7% barrels. Just some results, falling off in terms of could he have hit a couple more home runs and had a higher ISO, maybe a couple more extra base hits, but he's been arguably fantastic this year. The price is up for Coors Field. You pay a little bit of a Coors tax, but there's plenty of bargains on this slate to help you do it. Yelich for 65.45, again, another little Coors tax, but he's a tremendous hitter. And I mean, just tailor-made for this ballpark, a guy who just blasts the ball when he makes contact. Even if he's not hitting home runs, he just drives the ball so effectively. Is low strikeout, gets on base like crazy. Christian Yelich, perfect player for Coors Field. 321, 399, 486, creating runs 50% better than average, 18 steals, 8 home runs. It's been terrific. Willie for 55.39, not even really paying a Coors tax, maybe a little bit. 13 home runs, 10 stolen bases. Limited in terms of his reliability at just 229, 321, 408. But he's created runs 8% better than average. He's hitting for power, putting a ton of balls in play with solid power behind him. Just 21.1% strikeouts. That's average-ish, but it's down from 25.9% last year and higher in years past. Willie's been really good for this team and good shortstop at Coors Field. Jackson Chourio, no longer a member of the Dynasty team. Had to say goodbye in that trade package. Oh, damn. Klay Thompson to the Mavs. 3 years, $50 million. Good pickup for Dallas. Spurns LeBron for the Mavericks. Chourio sent him packing in that trade package. Still a top young bat. He's only 20 years old. Had a good June. Really came on a little bit during June. He's up to 9 home runs, 8 steals, hitting for a little bit more consistent power lately. 5.1% barrels, 41.8% hard hits. Kind of coming around, finding his footing a little bit more and more. He's climbed up the lineup. If he's hitting 5th, like the option a lot for very cheap prices. DraftKings, $3,500. Another guy, $3,500. That seems to be the magic number for underpricing today. They have not caught up to the June that Jackson Chourio had. $3,400 on FanDuel is probably correct. It's definitely correct at Coors Field. Rhys Hoskins, 46.35, has 11 home runs, a 183 ISO, 109 WRC+. Plus. Tremendous power bat, a lot of barrels, first base on both sides for a fair price. 46 is a little cheap for Coors Field on DraftKings. Blake Perkins, Andrew Monasterio, Bryce Turang at the bottom of the lineup. Love Turang, no concerns about a lefty-lefty against Austin Gomber. He can handle that. 28 stolen bases, a tremendous slash line, creating runs 20% better than average. Top of the lineup or the bottom of the lineup. Happy to get to Bryce Turang. Might lead off if Joey Ortiz doesn't play. Monasterio from the bottom is more of a mix and match replacement level player. He's very cheap, but entirely skippable. Blake Perkins can give you a little bit more. 5 home runs, 13 steals this year, but inconsistent, just a 113 ISO, mediocre slash line, 95 WRC plus. Playable, but not a priority. It's 2:50. The slate starts in 17 minutes. Live before lock. In lowercase, not as the name of the show. I don't want to get sued. On the other side, the Rockies, assuming this is relatively close to the Rockies lineup, but do think they're playable. Second highest run total on the slate, going up against an opener and then Bryce Wilson. Clay kind of washed. All he's got to do is find that shot. Just sit outside, let Luka do his thing, find him open looks. I like the fit anyway. Let's put it that way. We'll see what he gives them, but fit-wise, I think it makes sense. And they got him cheap. That is not a crazy expensive contract in today's NBA. I know he's on the back end of the talent trajectory, but not a bad price. So the Rocks between these two teams are certainly going to be the lower owned option. That said, some of these guys will get popular. It is a Coors game. They're not unobvious on a 3-gamer. Charlie Blackmon off the top, getting on at a 327 clip, down to a 90 WRC plus. He's been pretty mediocre this year. I'm surprised he hasn't lost more opportunities of late. 254 plate appearances. They got a lot of young names to rotate through. A lot of interesting bats in there. So we might see Charlie start to dwindle or maybe get traded or whatever to make room for some of these kids. But if he's in the lineup, especially leading off like usual, totally playable against, it'll be a lefty opener, but a mediocre lefty opener, and then at some point, Bryce Wilson. So Charlie's totally playable. Brenton Doyle's been better, not in terms of run creation at 83 WRC plus compared to Charlie's 90, but this is the Rockies we're talking about, so it's all relative. 7 home runs, 19 stolen bases out of Doyle this year. A lot of counting stat production out of him. He's very cheap for that. 4,700, 3,400. You can buy the upside there, especially hitting second in the lineup. Zeke Tovar, 51-34, 12 home runs, 4 steals, 188 ISO, a 104 WRC plus. Now that Francisco Lindor got traded away from Mike Brown's team, he finally got the big call up in the Dynasty League up to Mike Brown's team. He was blocked by Lindor all this time, despite the good production. Mikey couldn't get him to the team, so finally cleared a path. Mike's got a lot of good young players now. For the money, Tovar's pretty good. 188 ISO, a 104 WRC plus, a very solid slash line. He's hit 12 home runs so far. Don't mind the option at short. Compared to like Lindor, Adames on the other side, the shortstops from the first game, probably falls somewhere in the middle ownership-wise. I don't think he's going to be the most popular shortstop on the slate. I could be wrong, but he's easily deserving of it in terms of the ballpark, the matchup, the current year production, and the talent level. Not a bad option. Ryan McMahon, 52-35, 14 home runs on the season, a 192 ISO, 114 WRC plus. Last I looked, he was doing all right, lefty-lefty. Just because it is that lefty opener, that's the reason I look. Yep. 5 of his home runs have come against lefties. 9 against righties, against lefties, against same-handed pitching, 323, 400, 538 this year, 215 ISO, 151 WRC plus, and way better against same-handed pitching than he has against righties. So fire away with your McMahon shares, 52.35, fair price for Ryan McMahon here. 9 in the 9.0 in the home run model, second on the team to Michael Talia. Elias Diaz, 44.32, a mix and match catcher, probably better than that, honestly, on this slate. Coors Field. Fair price, 307, 355, 446 so far this year. A 110 WRC plus, 5 home runs. Doesn't crush the ball, but doesn't strike out a ton. Puts a lot of balls in play. Solid contact hitter with a lot of good results so far this year and a good spot in a Coors Field lineup. I like the Elias Diaz option. Love Nolan Jones, 48-31. I know he struggled over 157 plate appearances. He's also been hurt this year. It's been a bad start to the season for Nolan Jones, but again, dude went 20-20 in just 424 plate appearances last year. You cannot tell me that this guy's not good at baseball. 297, 389, 542 with a 245 ISO, 135 WRC plus in that sample as a rookie last year. Some help from Coors, maybe, sure, but there's upside. There's a ton of upside there. He's cheap. Brendan Rodgers at 37, 3,000 at second base. 89 WRC plus, but an okay slash line. 279, 318, 408. Just 5 home runs, but if I'm just looking for guys who can hit the ball a little bit hard, get on base, correlate with guys around them at a cheap price in Coors Field, and guys who will be lower owned on a day where we definitely need to go to lower owned guys from the bottom of the lineup, mix and match things to get creative, to create price savings, to get to more expensive pitchers. He's been very effective this year for that kind of a role. Again, the 279, 318, 408 says enough. The 5 home runs. You're not talking about a really good major league player. Again, below average by 11 points for run creation. But 44.9% hard hits with the ability, at least last year a little bit and a little bit more previous seasons, to barrel the ball and sustain premium contact over the last couple of years. That's an interesting enough option for a few shares. Talia, again, home run pick of the day. Over 138 plate appearances. He's hit 9 home runs, a 252 ISO. We've talked about him basically every day he's been in the lineup on a slate because he keeps grading out with tremendous home run marks. We just haven't caught one in the home run pick, like I was saying at the top of the show. So I used him again today. Monster premium contact, 14.6, 47.6% across the premium contact numbers. High strikeout, low frequency of output, but a very, very high ceiling on this slate. Would love it if he hits higher up the lineup. If you get Hunter Goodman in the lineup, he's a very good power option as well. I think Eloy Montero either went on the IL or got sent down, so you won't see him. I think Sean Bouchard is still on the roster. If you get him, that's another interesting potential bat with some power in it. So keep an eye out for those type of guys, especially Hunter Goodman, since they're going to open with the lefty. Maybe he gets into the lineup. We'll see. But he's another righty bat with a lot of power. Pretty sure they haven't moved him back down yet. Oh, and then Jake Cave at the bottom of the lineup. 35-28, a mix and match part, 59 WRC plus, pretty limited slash line, pretty limited overall player. And that's it, guys. Up and down, top to bottom, it is 2:57. The slate starts in, 10 minutes? 10-ish minutes. There's your pitching board one last time. It is very straightforward. These two guys are easily the best guys on the slate in terms of talent, matchup, upside, projection, etc., etc., etc. They're both going to be over 50% owned on DraftKings, with David Peterson not far behind, and 1-2 or 1-2 are going to be the most popular combos of the day. So good luck mixing and matching your way through those. If you use these pitchers, you certainly have to consider some of those lower cost, lower owned guys down lineup that we talked about. And I think there's a lot of them to use on this slate. So I think it makes a lot of sense to just kind of stick up here for pitching. I do think you could get away with a few darts around Bryce Wilson at Coors, but you're limited for your win equity given that he's in bulk relief, not actually starting the game. Jadiel is really, really challenging. I talked about the only situation to roster him in on FanDuel. And you can throw the dart a little bit on DraftKings, but know that you're probably only getting 3 or 4 innings, and he's not been all that good. And then Gomber at least is going to actually start the game, so you get a little bit of upside out of that. But pitching against probably second best team on the slate with the Brewers in town. Pretty challenging start. Coors Field, all those impacts. This is the home run board. I don't know why I'm necessarily hustling. It's not like the other lineups have come out, so I don't actually have to update anything. Have they come out? Nope. No changes yet. So that's your home run board one last time. Just 3 guys actually over the magic number. Another handful of guys just behind it. Again, home run pick of the day. You can see a number of Coors Field players near the top of the board. But just on general quality, Jordan Alvarez, Pete Alonso outpacing even Coors Field guys. And Rhys Hoskins. Oh, no, Rhys Hoskins is at Coors Field, sorry. That's your slate, guys. Good luck out there. Slate's about to start. Get your lineups in now. Be in Discord for the next 10 minutes to answer any questions, and Joker and I are going for a walk. Good luck out there. Somebody go win something. We'll be back with probably more to talk about tomorrow. See you guys.